The tidbit of the week is called choices. And for those of us who have a defensive mindset, we've learned to pay attention to our surroundings and have, some common sense about our actions so we don't put ourselves in bad situations, right? We've learned these things, and as instructors we teach these things. Well, along those lines, I was recently in a public setting where people were everywhere and I had very limited options as to where I could position myself in the room. And it turned out that I ended up in the worst possible position I could be in, smack dab in the middle of several people on my left, several people on my right. My back was facing exactly where I would like to be able to see. And there was really nowhere for me to go in any direction if something were to happen, unless I wanted to jump on top of people. So these are things that are, I think about in my day-to-day life. And so this is how my mind works now, right? And I know many of us with a defensive mindset, we think that way too. And several years ago, this would never have crossed my mind, though. And it's, the running through scenarios that we talk about in developing a mindset that we talk about in training. But later on after this event, had a conversation with someone, and knowing your audience is really important. And apparently, I didn't realize my audience at the time, but we were having a conversation about how crowded the seating was for the event. And of course, I said something to the effect of, yeah, I didn't really like being in that position. If something would have gone down or something would have happened, many of us would have been trapped like sitting ducks in that scenario, in that, environment. And surprisingly, the reply to me after I said this was, well, I don't know how you can think like that. I just don't know how you can think like that. Like it was horrible of me to think that way, that anything bad could ever happen. And I thought about that conversation later, and as easy as it would have been for me to be really judgmental of that person, I instead thought about how I used to be. And I realized I was the same way at one point in my life. Many years ago, I thought nothing bad would ever happen to me. And thinking about something bad happening just made me really uncomfortable. And so I just didn't go there and I didn't think about it until one day I was forced to think about it. And trust me, being in a very dangerous, helpless position is way more uncomfortable than thinking this stuff through in advance. So here's what I want to say about that. Maybe you're on one end of the spectrum or the other, but the fact that you are personally responsible for your own safety is something I believe you will either come to terms with on your own or something you may be forced to come to terms with someday. And I pray it's not the latter. But in this little conversation I had, it woke me up even more to the fact that the idea of personal responsibility and having a defensive mindset is a choice that one needs to make for themselves. And I believe that a person should always prepare for the worst and always hope for the best. So, in thinking about choices, here's what I encourage: choose to consistently get the best training you possibly can get. Choose to take the responsibility of being a defender very seriously. Choose to know the law and your rights so you don't get yourself in even more trouble if you have to use your firearm in self-defense. And above all, choose to love others even when they don't make the same decisions you do. Not everyone is called to be a defender. If you are called, remember that others may need you someday. So prepare daily your mind, your body, and your soul for such a time, should it ever come. And while you're at it, don't forget to love others in the process.